I'm in my zone.
Hey, this is Zero at ReviewZoneHD, and I'm pretty excited about this game and this review because I get to dish out a lot of really good news in this video for fans of this series. First off, I'm going to fill you in on some of the new features and the changes that have been made with this title, and then I'm going to get down to giving my thoughts on all of it after spending 25 hours playing it this week. Now, the story takes place immediately following the events of the first game. It features several characters that have become a staple for this franchise, including Laharl, Etna, and the much beloved Prinnies, who I personally never use in my own party setups. Now, if you didn't play the original game, don't worry, it's not an exact direct sequel, and it does have its own standalone story, so you shouldn't be any more confused than those of us that have actually played through each game. And all of the Disgaea titles have really wacky stories. This one's no different, and it does do a good job of exploring the relationship between the three main characters while also properly introducing a few new members to the group. But for me, the cutscenes were more of a quirky distraction than anything else. I enjoy these titles for the micromanagement and the combat, and they've made a lot of really cool changes that's enhanced both of those categories. For starters, those who are new to this series will get welcomed in with some really great tutorials, the best that I've seen in any of the Disgaea games to date. Everything is properly explained, and even though the game will still be overwhelming at first for those that haven't played a previous strategy RPG, you should be able to pick up pretty quickly as the basics are explained really well throughout the first chapter. Now, one of the most noticeable differences between this title and anything that's come before it in the Disgaea series is the new highly polished HD graphics. The presentation is a lot easier on the eyes. The special character moves that snap the camera back and forth appeared a lot smoother while still remaining very crisp. The environments use a lot of lighter colors, and the backgrounds and some textures have almost a watercolor look to them. The menus were pleasing to look at, and the text was very easy to read. The item world has a lot more variety to it and a lot more color to it. You're not traveling across bland and barren ground anymore. You also start off on each item world level on top of whatever ship that you select before you enter, and you use that as your spawn point. Now, you first start the game off with a small boat, and then you get to progress to larger ships. And it took me roughly 4.5 hours to unlock the item world, which occurs at the beginning of Chapter 3. Now, one thing I didn't like about these new boats is the sails on the top of them can sometimes get in the way and clutter up the screen, and it can make it hard to see your character, but luckily you can use different ships to correct this problem. And you're going to notice right away that in this new title you have a lot more freedom with the individual character customization and their growth. You can select between different colors, different personalities, and different special abilities when you first create them, and their weapon specialties level up based off of which weapon that you want to use. I won't go as far as saying that the combat has been rebalanced, because it is essentially the same combat system that's found in every Disgaea game, but it does take better advantage of focusing on the individual character strengths and weaknesses for every member in your party. Mages can now equip books that allow them to summon monsters. Fist weapon style fighters can now hit multiple times with a regular attack or a counter attack, which was extremely fun to watch, and the monster class as a whole has been revamped. They got rid of the Magi Change system, which turned them into weapons, and they replaced that with a monster mount system. Any humanoid character can jump on top of any of your monsters and ride them around the battlefield. It also unlocks new and more powerful moves that they can use together. They can also level up together. I was never a fan of using the monsters in the previous Disgaea titles because I didn't like the one and done Magi Change system, and also because the monsters can't lift and throw characters. But now with this monster mount system in place, they're actually really useful and a lot of fun to put into your group as you build your perfect party setup. Another huge upgrade in this title compared to any of the previous Disgaea games is the character relationship mechanic. When you're out on the battlefield, the characters will sometimes now talk to one another, which at first I wasn't sure if that was going to be annoying and break the flow of battle, but it doesn't happen enough to ever really become a problem, and it was actually fun reading what they had to say to one another, and I enjoyed this aspect more than the actual cutscenes. You also grow and break relationships between each character based on your actions. So if you kill your own party members to level up, as I've shown you guys in previous videos, it doesn't always work out in your favor, because then the character can become disliked by the other members in your group. It's almost like the developers built this system to punish those of us who want to cheat our levels early in the game by abusing that system, which is rather amusing. But talking to each character in your base and assigning them a master and pupil status will help build their like meter. This will in turn enhance how they react to one another in combat. If one character really likes another character, they will help support them in attacks and even protect them with the defend command. It's similar to where you place the characters in the classroom from the previous games, but it's a much more fluid and better system in just about every which way possible. As far as the difficulty goes, I found this Disgaea game to be slightly more difficult compared to any of the past editions, especially early in the game. I had to grind out a few of these starting stages to clear the first chapter, and then the final battle for each chapter was a lot more challenging, usually requiring a well-rounded group. Having one super powerful mage and one counter-attacking tank of a martial artist can't put the whole weight of the party on their back anymore and carry you through the first few chapters, because the stages are designed so that you have to travel across them with multiple characters opposed to just sitting back and burning anything that moves to the ground as they creep toward the spawn area. This is sort of the ultimate Disgaea game. They added enough new features to set this one apart from anything that's come before it while still keeping the core of what makes these titles fun to play. And I do have one minor nitpick that's worth pointing out. There is no online features such as what we saw with Disgaea 4, which is kind of a shame because it seemed like they had taken a step in the right direction with some of that stuff, so it was a little disappointing to see all of that scrapped for this release. There's only a few other titles such as Final Fantasy XI Online and the SOCOM series that I can sit down and start playing, and time just has no meaning anymore. By the time I'm done playing, I look up at the clock and I'm just shocked at how much time that I've spent playing this game. And the way these games are built, you have to sink a ridiculous amount of time into them to see and do everything. I've spent 25 hours playing this week through the first 7 chapters, and there's still a whole lot of game left for me to play in. There's usually a lot of secrets and different ways to complete the game that I can't even share with you guys because I don't know exactly what they are yet. I think me recommending a day one purchase is pretty easy for this one. If you've never played a Disgaea game in the past, this is the one to start with. With these titles, you always get more than your money's worth with near endless hours of replayability, and this installment is no exception. It's my favorite series that NIS publishes, and it's the best turn-based strategy RPG that I've played since Disgaea 3 on the Vita last year. Highly recommend picking this one up if you enjoy these types of games. This is Zero at ReviewZoneHD, and as always, thanks for stopping by.